Next, we are joined by Terry Roycroft. I keep messing that one up. From MCRCI. Welcome, Terry. We're really excited to have you.
Great to be here.
To start it off, for the people who are watching who don't know what MCRCI stands for and what exactly it is, can you please inform us?
Sure, it's the Medicinal Cannabis Resource Center. And we started back in 2007 originally. And funny enough, Jody earlier was mentioning Michelle Rainey, and she was one of our original partners that we originally started with way back then. And even before we opened up one of our clinics, she had actually passed away. So it was really unfortunate that she hasn't been around, because this is one of the things that she had really pushed. And that's where the medicinal part of MCRCI came from, was actually that.
We called you one-stop shopping earlier, but not in the sense of shopping, but in the sense of if I'm someone that wants to, I'm the layman out there, I've heard about it, I've read about marijuana, I'm not sure, I'm tired of taking the stuff that my doctors prescribe me, or whatever the reason, I've got chronic pain, but I've never been down this road to get medical marijuana. Would you be the place I go in the sense of I'm going to stop, get all the information I need, start from point A and end up at point B and be done?
Yes, basically we are.
So you are one-stop shopping, okay, so that fits.
The only thing that we wouldn't do is we wouldn't be supplying you the medicine out of our clinics. We would be directing you to one of the licensed producers or something. Other than that, though, all the lead up to be able to accomplish that, we do and we take care of.
Can you explain the process of it?
Yeah, so basically, this is the ACMPR. There's been several other versions of this starting in about 2000. So this one has come back in with the ability for people to actually get their grow licenses as well. So what's changed from the previous
Personal growth license,
Personal
right?
growth
Yeah,
licenses,
okay.
yes. So it's changed from the previous version of this when they took that away, is now doctors now have to work within those confines. And a lot of the doctors in the earlier days were afraid of that in the first version, so this is why they didn't participate. The second version, they didn't have to worry about that. More and more doctors came on board and started to understand about cannabis. And now when the version came back, we're still seeing doctors being much more comfortable, so that allows us to do that. So what would happen is if you want to or you felt that cannabis would be useful for one of the ailments you had, you didn't want to see your doctor, you were tired of pharmaceuticals, and you wanted to try cannabis, you would come to us.
And yeah, so if I'm coming into you and I'm going, okay, I've got whatever the situation is, what is the process? Am I seeing do you have doctors? Am I seeing a doctor there? Am I seeing, how does it?
The way it works is it's basically a clinic. It's a doctor's clinic, but we specialize in the treatment of cannabis. So what happens with us is we're a secondary care provider, meaning that you would come to us with a pre-diagnosed symptom that your doctor either isn't familiar with cannabis or isn't willing to support you and could refer them to us, or you could come to us directly. We would then do an intake with you just to find out if that is valid, and virtually, anything people come to us with, cannabis will work to support. So that's really not much of an issue.
Right.
So we come to you, go through a process, then there'll be an intake. The girls will get information, create a file for you with the physician, and then we'll book an appointment with you. You'll have a time with the doctor, depending upon the severity of your issues, whether or not you're familiar with cannabis. It can be 10 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on what happens. After that, you would then go see one of our aftercare specialists, who would then take the information the doctor's put in that file, direct you and register you with a licensed producer who is legally allowed to sell cannabis in Canada. There's about 40 of them now. I think about 30 of them now can actually sell. So there's quite a wide variety of products available, different programs, support systems for people that are in low income, veterans, things like that. And each licensed producer has kind of a different version. Some are organic, some grow in greenhouses. So whatever the needs are for you, we will direct you to the proper LP, register you, and then at that point you can order via mail order. People can send, then they will mail you your prescription, because when you leave us, you've got your prescription, you're registered, and you're educated at that point. So now you're in shape to be able to try your first time if you've never done it before.
I'm imagining that there was a time probably 5 years ago that, I don't know, you had a dozen people coming in your place. In a month. I imagine now you have a dozen a day, if not more.
Yes, there's far more. I think we're talking about 14,000 people per month signing up for the federal program. So when we started, there were
again, live audience today. People are very 14,000, and it's only there we got the shot of the live audience you see today.
So and it's dramatically increasing because more and more people are becoming aware, it's become mainstream, and more physicians, most importantly, are willing to support it. So we're not out there alone any longer. There's probably 100 clinics like ours in Canada.
Right, I'm wondering how many people now come to you as opposed to before that said, look, my doctor wants nothing to do with it, but I'd like to try this, and that's your person. As opposed to now going, hey, my doctor's already kind of written me a prescription, but I'm not quite sure. He wasn't well informed enough about the differences, about the specifics, and I'm coming to you for that.
And we have people coming to us for that.
Yeah, I would think, right?
Yeah, and I have a question too. So you're taking people, just to clarify for the audience, you are taking people off of pharmaceuticals who have serious medical issues, and you are now bringing them, and you're providing them a treatment program.
Well, yes, we have many people that have been oxycodone, that are on narcotics, that want to get off that. And the interesting thing about cannabis is that when you start them on a program, basically your CB1 and CB2 receptors work in conjunction with your opioid receptors, and they make them more effective. So immediately we can cut a person's dose in half once you start them on a cannabis program. And from there, we increase the cannabis and wean them off, and we've had many success stories of people being able to handle the chronic pain, the depression, and everything else that goes along with narcotic use and addiction to be able to get them off that. So we're not specifically a treatment program, but we have many other groups.
That's almost like a byproduct.
Yeah.
It's not, we're not saying, here, if you're addicted, we're not an addiction center.
No.
But it's a byproduct of by going, hey, if you want to try something else as opposed to that, this could change the equation completely.
Right, and we have the groups that deal with those people, sending and referring people to us for that support, because it's well known. There's been a study that was done by Tilray just recently, and there's many things out there that point to the effect that cannabis can help get people off and help with this opiate addiction. So from that matter, more and more of the organizations are being open to it, and we're being contacted by more of them saying, can you help, or are you available, and what's the story with the legal, scenario here?
Besides the opioids, what are some of the main medical conditions that people are coming to you and are actually noticing huge changes? Because I know, you guys work with cancer patients, and I know that is a huge majority of us have watched people go through that, and to see somebody, through a different light, trying something different. Can you kind of talk about that a bit?
Well, what happens is chronic pain is traditionally where we have our biggest area, and chronic pain can be with a lot of things. That could be from byproducts of cancer, accidents, all kinds of things. So that's one of the primary. Second is sleep problems, and that is, again, a byproduct of having chronic pain, not be able to get proper sleep, and then stress and anxiety are the third and fourth kind of underneath that, and again, all byproducts of those combination of symptoms, creating all those symptoms as they flow down. So, cannabis obviously can work in all those areas. We do see people for cancer. It's not the largest area, but when people need support and actually direction to Rick Simpson oil or Phoenix Tears, things that are available through dispensaries that are not available through licensed producers, we try to connect them with appropriate sources, can assist them with that. There are certain protocols that we'll go through to get the proper dosages for them and assist them in that way.
You guys seem like an information center to some degree, right? Like a
Cannabis resource center.
Right, like there's something you need to know. No, regardless, different aspects of it, whether it's the prescription part, whether it's the difference of the strains, depending on what your question is. You don't have to be someone who's there from start to finish. You could be coming going, as I said, you already got my prescription, but I need some help. I don't know what to take.
Yeah, so we're there for any parts of those portions throughout that process of helping them. If they don't know, we can educate. If they do know, we can take them to the next step and get them licensed if they need direction. So anyone can come to us from any piece of that, or if they need from start to finish and they're naive and have never tried cannabis before, or they're elderly or things like that, which we see a lot of elderly people now getting involved in cannabis because of their long-term use of anti-inflammatories or painkillers. We're starting to see breakdowns in their stomach and liver problems and things like that.
And they've been sold a bill of goods their entire lives,
exactly.
believing that
Here, take these,
if they went, but if
I'm
sure they're afraid. If I smoked that marijuana or I took that marijuana, next thing I know, I'm using a needle, right? Like because they've been sold that story forever.
Or I'm going to not be able to do anything. I'm going to turn into a
right.
Well, typically it's the child that is at the senior center or at the hospital saying, "Listen, we see you have these problems, Mom, Dad. Why don't you try this?" And so people have brought in some cookies, and it's been gone around, and everyone's feeling good about it. And so now the staff are starting to be accepting of that. And we've talked to a number of senior centers and different groups that want to start supplying cannabis to their patients, but they need to know, can it be legal? If it is, what are the dosages and things like that? And that's what we can come in and help educate and create some policies for organizations like that.
So the opposite of seniors is children. And
Right.
you guys are also, are you the only company right now that's working with children in Canada?
Well, there's very, very few doctors that will. Some
Yeah.
doctors will, but we're probably one of the only companies specifically geared there, other than an independent doctor that may be working within that realm. But we do have a doctor, our medical director, who's very well known throughout the country for his expertise and knowledge in cannabis, and he will see children. Obviously, it's a different scenario.
Yeah.
We can license them because what we want to do is we want to license the parents to be legally allowed to possess it so that they can give it to their children without worrying about having legal repercussions. So there's a process for that, whereby usually this is when most things have been tried. And we have them come to us. They've talked to their pediatrician who is on board. Our physician will talk to them, they'll have a conversation, they will refer them to us because many things don't work and they really want to try this. They've either tried it illegally, seen it working, and then want to be legal so that they don't get themselves in trouble, have their children taken away or any of these things. And so we can help with that. And there's many documentaries out there talking about and showing children being really affected in a major positive way immediately when they start using cannabis. Sanjay Gupta from CNN, who's got the series Weeds.
Oh, he
Weeds
changed
1.
his whole tune. He became one of those guys that said, no, it's a gateway drug, to, you know what, we should be prescribing this, it should be decriminalized. Again, it's all about education.
So, and that's for the children, especially low CBD products, and this is what we're seeing now, CBD products with no THC coming out. The licensed producers are producing low THC, high CBD products and oils, so that, again, the children that go through the right process, that have all the authorizations by their parents and their other pediatricians, can now get access to that without breaking the law. I was in Australia last year, and we were talking about cannabis with children, and it was very taboo subject there. None of the physicians would talk about it in front of anyone else. They would only talk to me privately after I did the talk, and there'd been several doctors that had been put in jail with the parent for giving a child Rick Simpson oil, and it worked, and all three of them went to jail, and they took her off the CBD oil, and she started to deteriorate. So this was why it was at such a high point of topic when I was down there. So, we see it all around the world that it's working. Luckily here, we've got the ability to make it legal, and in certain places down in the States, people will move from all over the States to places like Colorado just to be able to get access to the oil so they're not breaking the law and to save their children.
Yeah, well, we had Haley Rose. She was here just a few weeks ago, sitting in that
Haley's
chair
comment.
talking about
exactly.
her survival story, pretty much. So,
Yes, I've
so we have some audience questions again. We can send over there.
So I was just wondering, what would be the benefit of purchasing from a licensed producer rather than just going to a dispensary and being licensed?
Right. Well, that's a good question because there's so many dispensaries around these days and popping up. Well, one of the advantages would be that your medicine is tax deductible right off the top. So now, if you're using large amounts of medicine, you can actually write that off. So that is because you're licensed with a licensed producer, and they will be giving you the authorization to be able to do that. Secondary, there's very, very strict standards around the medical marijuana producers, whereby they have to meet much criteria for mold, mildew, all that sort of thing. So it's very strictly controlled. Now with dispensaries, many of them take all those precautions as well. They have microscopes and things like that, but other ones may not. And if you're someone looking for medicine and your system is compromised, you want to make sure that there's no other kind of toxins or pollutants in it. So for medical patients, it is important to make sure that that's the case. But for recreational patients, it may not, or users, it may not be that important that, for something like that.
Run out one more, Terry?
We have another question. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great place to start, is talking about dispensaries and their role here. Hi, Terry. My name's Mason. Nice to see you. I work for one of the dispensaries, and of course, this year has been amazing for us as far as the energy and focus on what we're doing. And you're working directly with LPs, but I really want to know, what do you think the role of the dispensary is in all this, and the importance? You mentioned Phoenix tiers. You can't get that through other, government-run programs. So, we're taking a risk. The client and a patient has to take a risk. What role do you think dispensaries will play next year? And do you think the ones that are currently operating deserve some level of amnesty for for taking this step and bravely helping people.
Are you talking medical dispensaries or just any dispensary?
Well, dispensary, it doesn't matter if it's medical or personal. It's the same thing, really, if you think about it. Stress relief is...
No, I agree that it's always medicinal, but legally there's a difference.
Well, that's wrong, too. That's a divide and conquer strategy, isn't it? They're trying to separate recreational from medicinal. I don't think there should be a distinction. It should be personal use. That's what we really feel.
No, I hear what you're saying. It is, but it isn't that way. It should be that way.
Definitely.
But
So I'm
it's
asking,
not, right.
should we be given the chance to continue next year, even though we're not part of these big LPs? Should we be given that amnesty, at least one chance, because we are testing our product? Because I don't think any of the dispensaries have any major legal action against them for health violations on behalf of clients. Most people are thankful they don't have to wait in a parking lot. So what do you think for next year?
Well, I don't just work with licensed producers. I work with dispensaries for exactly the reason you brought up. There's many products out there that are not available by the licensed producers. So as a resource center ourselves, we don't just limit ourselves to that. Yes, we're medical. We help people in that way. But what we do is we also will direct them with appropriate dispensaries that have tested medicine that we know that is clean, or the people that have produced it. Those sort of things, we will assist them, especially for cancer patients. People like that can't get the product from the licensed producers, and I totally agree with you. There is a place for dispensaries. Now, what's going to be happening here as we move along, the amnesty that you're talking about, well, one point to look at that is, well, you've been breaking the law for whatever reasons, so why should you be rewarded for that?
So are you, Terry. By directing people to dispensaries, you're breaking the law as well.
Well, exactly. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not
crime.
saying it's right or wrong. What I'm saying is that is part of the attitude when we're talking about allowing dispensaries to move ahead. What I believe is going to happen is there's going to be a operation. There's going to be a standard operating procedures. BC's putting it in place. Ontario's putting it in place. Right or wrong, each province is going to be putting that in place. Now, if you're a dispensary and you want to continue, the problem you're going to have is where you're getting your product from. Now, if you want to be a legal dispensary and be in line with all the regulations, it's going to come down that you're going to be getting your product from these licensed producers, because the current model right now, albeit it's working and it's supplying all the product out there, it is basically illegal. The program was never designed for people to grow for themselves in mass and have major overages and use that to supply outside sources. So I believe the law is going to try and use that as their enforcement method. If you're a dispensary and you want to work within the confines that are there, like everyone else is doing, you'll have the opportunity to do that. Now, you've got a great advantage as a dispensary in this industry because you've got patient flow, you've got product knowledge, and you've got locations. And if they're going to put a program in for dispensaries, they're going to be using the same criteria that you're probably in already, meaning distance from schools and and liquor stores, things like that. So you're in a great position to actually be legal and go down that road. But the problem you're going to run into is that the supply chain, which is currently coming from the medical marijuana market, is probably going to be interrupted. And if you want to be legit, you're going to have to probably buy your strains from the licensed producers, who, by the way, are interested still at this point in making those connections, because they understand they're going to need storefront distribution as well. So I think there's an opportunity for everybody to work together as we move forward.
Terry, thanks so much. Great question,
you.
man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Terry,
Awesome.
thank you so much for coming in, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Terry Roycroft, of course, President, Medicinal Cannabis Resource Center.